Welcome to On Spot Review. I'm gonna talk about Joker. It came out last week, and it was a movie everyone was talking about, obviously, because this was gonna be a standalone movie from the Joker, which people are obviously more interested in. It's a very popular villain from DC. But also, I think people were also skeptical when they first announced it because just like a DC's track record on movies, you have Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Justice League, Aquaman, and Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad, in my opinion, is like the worst movie they put out. It's the most embarrassing movie they made, and I think Birds of Prey will be just as embarrassing. So going through that, it was like a little bit like I don't know if I'm gonna watch this movie. I don't know. I might just skip it. And then they announced Joaquin Phoenix was involved, and I was already sold on that because Joaquin Phoenix is really one of my favorite not directors, whoops, actors. He does a lot of like these interesting like movies that range from movies that you might have not even heard of to movies that you've probably seen here and there. Like he was in Her, Sisters Brothers. That was either called like the Sister Brothers or the Sisters Brothers. It's a Western, really good movie. I do recommend that movie a lot. That one then he was in Inherent Vice, Her, Sister's Brother, and I think this one I think is in this movie. I can't remember the name of it. Unfortunately, it's like called "And Now I'm Not Here" or something. That was a good movie too. I do recommend that one too. It's a little more of like a cerebral kind of movie. But it's a fun one. I liked it. It was very interesting. But we're talking about The Joker. So The Joker is a solid movie. I think it does in some ways subvert expectations. Like it does kind of do things that I appreciate a lot more, and I kind of wish more comic book movies did. Like it does a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect from a comic book movie, from a traditional comic book movie. Kind of subverts that, especially for an origin story like this. And I think one of the interpretations this will mostly be compared to is The Killing Joke. They even on one of the posters has a quote from that book. It's like it only takes one. Things like it only takes one bad day or something, and that's a very like poignant point in terms of The Killing Joke because it was just one thing happened and it kind of pushed him over the edge. While this movie does tries to add layers to the Joker's origin story, and it kind of makes it more real and more relevant in a way, and that's something that I appreciate a lot in this movie. A lot of Marvel movies try to kind of keep with these broad stroke messages and ideas like, oh, government corruption, shadow government, and it just kind of has them there, and it's just kind of like, okay, well, it is what it is. It kind of plays it safe with that, while Joker takes something that is real and it's relevant, like this divide with the rich and the poor that's ever growing and it's ever becoming an issue in society, everywhere pretty much. This movie represents kind of what's going on with that and kind of shows the ramifications of it. The only thing is that it kind of handles it in a very kind of sloppy kind of way. It kind of makes me wish it it pushed it a little bit more. Because it kind of gets into it. Then it's like, okay, enough of that. We're gonna just step back a little bit. It's serviceable. It does what it's set out to do. But the reason why I mentioned The Killing Joke was there's something key about that book that I think does a lot better than this movie does. So before we get into the spoiler talk, I do want to talk about the music. The music is phenomenal for this movie. I think it does give you a good tone of what's going on and the pacing of it. Like it does a good job setting the mood of of the movie on key moments. It's like, oh shit, and you get really like mesmerized by the music, and you're just kind of like, oh shit, and it does a good job painting a very dark, gritty Gotham City to something that's a little bit more like even more unsettling and twisty. Uh, so I like the music. The music's very solid and just right. The characters are good. I like the actors. The casting is really good. I think everyone does a good job with the character that they play. Robert De Niro is really good. He's a good actor. I like Robert De Niro, so he's always a blast to see on screen. The other actor, can't remember the name of this actor, but he was on Billions. I don't know how many people watch that show, but he's a good actor. I like him too. He kind of like uh typical kind of thug kind of guy, which I kind of appreciate. Like, uh, the one thing I kind of like about some DC movies that they try to do is I like the stereotypical thug, like the oh yeah man, oh, whatever, like just this fat guy that's just like oh. I'll go do some dirty dealings, whatever. And I do like some of that kind of stuff. But it doesn't have a lot of it though, so which is fine. So I think that's all I'm gonna talk about as far as that. But so right now we're gonna get to with the story. If you have not watched the movie just yet, stop right here, go watch the movie, come back, or you can skip to this timestamp in the video to to just get my final thoughts on the movie. So you have been warned. So we're gonna get into spoiler talk now. All right, everyone. Uh, the story is good. I think the first scene does a good job setting the tone, setting the stage of that movie. Like gives you Gotham, trash all over the streets. You have Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Flack, who's spinning a sign as a clown, saying everything must go. Kids run up to him, steal the sign, and then mug him later on. And that's like, it gives you the impression that this guy is a loser, and he just gets thrown around left and right. He goes to work. His boss tells him, "Look, the store you worked at did not get the sign back. They want the sign back, or it's gonna be deducted from your pay. You better fucking give the sign back." And he's like, "Well, kids jumped me. I told you." And he's like, "I don't give a fuck. You gotta return the sign. That's probably a lie anyway." He just didn't believe him, and he's like, "Oh, whatever. Like, why would I keep a sign?" He's like, "Well, why would anyone do anything?" And I like that scene. It kind of gives you this kind of like, oh man, this guy, this guy just got fucked it at work pretty much. So I like stuff like that that kind of portrays him as this kind of sad loser that you feel for. However, that kind of diminishes, not in a way that's like, oh well, yeah, he's the Joker, so of course, but like this is kind of why I would compare it to the Killing Joke. Like the Killing Joke does a better job with showing how the Joker kind of descended to madness in a way, and it was very quick too in the Killing Joke, and it worked because he lived with his wife who was pregnant in the single room apartment that was like crummy, shitty, and they always had aspirations to leave. uh, and I think also, if I remember correctly, the mom was also either taking a leave or she lost her job or it just wasn't working. I can't remember what it was, but she did say like, "Oh, you promised you were gonna get a big job and we were gonna leave this apartment," and she was like really trying to be supportive to for him, and he just hasn't gotten his luck. His comedy routine failed. He can't get gigs. He can't pay rent, and the mom has to keep asking her family for money to pay the rent and all that kind of stuff. And it was this very sad kind of setup that he had, and he was a loser. And he starts flirting with the idea of like, well, I could go with these guys and like rob my previous work because they seem like should get revenge and steal from them. And it was like fascinating to see him kind of go with this, and the people he was working with just saw him as a fall man. Like there was like, this guy's a little bitch. We're just gonna give him a little mask that he can't see well out of, so that way when the cops come, they'll arrest him, and we'll get away with the money. Like they were planning on ditching that guy like immediately if worse came to worse, pretty much. They just kind of left him there to take the fall. which I like because they kind of paint that as well as far as like the Red Hood goes in the Killing Joke. They kept saying, well, every Red Hood is different, and who's to say that you're not the Red Hood, whatever. Like they kind of talked him into it, and it was sad because this guy was desperate and he was just kind of like down as like and just a loser about it. Here, it's like it doesn't. They try to make him a loser. They try to get you to feel like, oh man, this poor guy. He gets beat up by the system every moment, but it's just it doesn't do a good job. It doesn't give you that kind of like push of like, holy shit, this guy, he got fucked up and now he's the most scariest guy in Gotham now. Now it's like, okay, this guy just is because right off the bat, the movie tells you this guy, he's mentally unstable. He sees a psychiatrist, and he takes medications, and he takes and he wants more medications to feel better, and it just kind of puts you in this mood of like this guy already is kind of on his way there. So at this point, the movie, like if you're really thinking of it this way, it somewhat becomes a countdown to when he snaps, which it kind of bums me out. Like a movie like this, it slowly becomes just a countdown. It's like, okay, is this it? Is this the scene? Is it the scene? Like that could be a little disappointing. It's not terrible. It doesn't, as I said, like these kind of things that go on with this movie doesn't ruin the experience. It's just kind of like it's these little opportunities that the movie could be taking, and it's just kind of going halfway there, and it just kind of stays at that pace because it's really like the guy was doing a movie. DC was behind his back. He's like, "This is going good so far. Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up." It's like, well, we could do this with Walking Phoenix, but it could be shitty. We're not gonna do it. It might be shitty. We're not gonna do it. We're gonna stick with this no, and it kind of sticks in the same kind of place it's at. I like the message it tries to convey and the importance of like, look, society does suck. There is a divide, and in a way, we did lose civility, and people just are out for it themselves now. Like people just don't give a shit about other people, and people just kind of go off to their 9 to 5, and it's the world got cold. It got like really cold, and it does a good job trying to convey that in this movie, but it does it on a surface level. Like he's a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist tells them, well, we got budget cuts all over the place, so we're not gonna be able to help you anymore. So you're gonna be on your own. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that sucks. And it's just like, okay, but like that's it. And then you have one of the key moments is the train ride, where he kills those three boys or men. They say that they're sons, so I mean I like to call them boys, I guess. But these three men on the train, these three boys, whatever the fuck. He kills them in a very extreme case of self defense. Like yeah, he did it out of self defense, but it was kind of like excessive to the point where it's like he was killing them at this point. Uh, and after that, it's like the movie starts showing like the thought of, oh man, he might be the hero of the poor because this is like what the fire needs. He's killing the rich. He's fighting back against the system, and like it's it's there, like the message is there, but I kind of think it would have been a better message if these three individuals had a bigger impact on Gotham. Like it was like these are the people that are involved with like you know in charge of the banks, or maybe like, oh, one of these people that were there was in charge of the influence of change of cutting these budgets, whatever. Like something that gives them somewhat of a prominence in Gotham, like that kind of is like a pillar of like this guy is fuck. This guy did this, and it could be like circumstantial, like coincidental. Like I'm not saying that these guys have to be directly involved or anything, or has to be motivated like that. Like he could have just done it in the sense of like, yeah, he would do this to anyone that was assholes, and that's how the scene played out. It's just that I wish these guys had some weight to like a greater consequence than, because a lot of the times in the movie they kind of made it in such a black and white kind of scene, like, oh, three kids of very rich families were on that train and they lost their lives, and it's like, I don't know if even any news station would report like that, like, oh, three people of wealthy families died. Like, they might say, oh, like, from this, oh, rich I don't know, like, I don't know, this is really weird, and it's just like I kind of wish that those three characters had more of a prominence, as I said, with what was going on in Gotham. It does a good job. It's solid, but it's just close. It's just not there to where I'd like it to be. Uh, and then, like, they try to show Thomas Wayne as this politician that just doesn't give a fuck about the poor, and he's all about the rich and this and that. Like, and I feel like they wanted to compare him to Trump because I think one of the pinatas at the protests looked like Trump. It had like the blonde hair, the and everything. It looked like Trump to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing things. I don't know. It looked like Trump, so I was like thinking they're trying to make that connection. However, they don't really talk a lot about what Thomas did to the city that would support that, because, like, not to get too political or whatever, but you can look at Trump and you could say, like, oh, look at this business dealing he did over here, and look how sleazy this is, whatever. Like, you could make a case for that. While in this movie, they just kind of give you nothing to go on other than people saying he's a sleazy guy. Look at Thomas Wayne, Mr. Rich over there, and it paints the issue in a very black and white way of like, oh, Thomas Wayne's rich, so there you go. He has to be out of touch and bad, and it just kind of doesn't go far with it. And like, it's something I do like that DC has been kind of doing lately with some of the Batman related stuff. Like, in, I don't know necessarily about the comics, but the Court of the Owls and the Telltale Batman game kind of talked about Thomas Wayne being a very corrupted guy, making dealings with a mafia, with like the Falcones, or I can't remember the crime family he made deals with, but it was either Falcone or the guy who starts with an M. I can't think of the name, like Marconi. Marconi's a little silly to me, but um, like, he made a lot of shady business dealings to make himself like very successful, etc. And I liked that idea, like that they had that he did this dirty stuff behind the scenes, and I like that. I like that how they did that, because it's such a uh what's the word? Like, it's kind of like the inverse of what Bruce Wayne is. Like, it's very interesting in how they bounce off each other and how opposite they are. While this movie, it tries that, but it doesn't really get too far into Thomas Wayne's politics or who he is as a person at that time in Gotham. Like, he just kind of seems like a guy that cares about people. There's no reason to not think that, because he's, unless the only thing I can think of is that he's running for re-election, but I don't think he's running for re-election. I think he's running for to be the mayor, and he kept promising that he's gonna fix Gotham City and he's gonna lift the poor and he's gonna do stuff, all this stuff for the poor. And I'm just sitting there, just like, they're trying to paint him off as like a guy that doesn't care, but like, just because he's rich he doesn't care. Like, it's a weird, like, kind of thing to kind of paint in a movie that wants to talk about this class divide. Because, like, the class divide is it's a much more loaded topic. There's a lot of cogs in that machine, and this movie just doesn't really go too far with it, and it doesn't really show Thomas Wayne being or gives us a reason to think that he doesn't care. Other than he's rich, but it's not a strong reason, and it just doesn't go too far with Thomas Wayne that I would have liked it to go. You could argue, well, this isn't a movie about Thomas Wayne, but his whole thing is such a backbone of what happened to the Joker that it needs to be more fleshed out. Because you could even argue, as far, like, if you really wanted to, that he's one of the antagonists of this movie, along with Robert De Niro. Now, uh, we talk about the class divide. Let's talk about the mental illness stuff that this movie tries to convey. It does a good way. It does it in a good way. It doesn't feel as shallow. It doesn't get too deep either, but it doesn't feel like, okay, this is just kind of black and white. It just doesn't go as far as I would have liked, as far as Arthur Flack, because it doesn't show much of a consequence of him not taking his meds. Like, he kind of alludes to some things that happen when he's off his meds, like uh the one thing that this kind of ties into the one thing I did kind of like in the movie was uh I liked how they build up him having this girlfriend to just say, well, this was a hallucination. They never really dated, and I do like that. It's not too like deep with it, but it's enough to be like, that's cool. I like that reveal. It was a nice reveal. Uh, all that being said, uh, so that shows like kind of like a hint of what happens when he's off his meds, but it just doesn't show enough. Like uh I feel like, this is gonna be a weird thing to say, but like, look at Ava 3.3 in that movie. There is a scene that I think conveys the main character's emotion very well, where he's kind of like Shinji, and the main character of Ava 3.3, or Ava in general, but Shinji gets like this big devastating news about another character, and he is just distraught by it. He's like walking down the corridor, the camera shakes, the gun goes like this, and things overlap with each other, and audio comes from multiple people saying, get into the robot, get into the robot, don't get into the robot, get in the robot, don't get in the robot, do what you want. Whatever, all these voices going on, and you can kind of see that it's driving Shinji mad, and you don't see that with this movie, and like, it would have been so cool, or like interesting if like the cinematography like portrays the unsteadiness with like camera work, scene composition. Like it kind of holds itself back in a lot of ways. Like a lot of the scenes set up, a lot of stuff that it shows, it shows that it tries, and that's all I can really say when it comes to that. It tries to do something with it, but it needs more emphasis. Like when you see the first time when Joaquin Phoenix is watching the Robert De Niro show at the hospital, and he's like, look at this guy at this comedy stand up routine. Look at them suck and shit. Like, you kind of making fun of him, and that scene was like this. It's like, oh shit, and he's getting mad, and he's like, this fucking guy, this fucking asshole. And then that kind of builds into when he shows up on the show, and that was such like a crescendo, I guess, or like just a build up to that. So I kind of wish it did a little bit more of pushing that angle of like he's getting more unstable. Maybe the camera goes a little more crooked in some scenes. Maybe like you do something with the composition that kind of shows that he's losing it. As I said, it's not bad. It's admirable, and it's competent. The movie is very competent, and that is, the best thing I could say about most DC movies. But this movie does so much that makes it more interesting and captivating. Like, you do end up seeing yourself kind of sitting from the beginning to end and just fascinated with what's going on. That even the negatives I've said with the story, and some of the stuff that feels sloppy, it does a solid job uh, kind of showing what's going on with Joker, be it that it's kind of a surface level. It does what it needs to do. Uh, so I liked it for that. The ending, I'm gonna talk about this a little bit more. Uh, I never liked making that Bruce Wayne's parents' death a spectacle. I always liked that it was just a random thug that killed his parents. It felt more impactful and more like, holy shit, because it's something that is random that you don't think is gonna happen. And and what I like about it is that you can sit there and think that Bruce Wayne can go multiple directions with that. He's either gonna like grow up to be a politician in hopes to stop this. He might become a policeman. He might, become many things. A lot of things can happen from that event. Uh, and he ends up being Batman. And what I've noticed with DC in general has been trying to do with his parents' death, be it in that shitty ass show Gotham. I think Court of the Night Owls as well tried this as well. Try to make his parents have some kind of conspiracy or spectacle with their deaths, and I never liked that because it kind of demeans the impact to me. It's like it just seems a little lame for that. So with this movie having this big, outlandish kind of riot on the streets to be the catalyst of his parents being killed, it just seems kind of like, guys, the Joker, he incited a riot, and then the riot of people who follow the Joker, who like the Joker's ideals, went to kill his parents, dude. And it just seems very like a stretch, or like them really wanting his parents to be killed by the Joker. And it was one scene where Arthur Fleck was investigating any validity with his mother's death, with his mother's claim of Thomas Wayne being the being his father and that kind of stuff. He meets Thomas Wayne, and in that scene I was like, please don't have him kill his parents. Don't do it. Just and it didn't do it. And I was like, okay, good. It's not gonna do the most like lame thing ever. And then it just kind of it doesn't do it at the end, but it kind of does it. Like it does it uh by proxy, I guess. And a lot of people I've been hearing saying that it's on the other hand, it's like a nice perspective shift. Like you see the murder on a different perspective of it, and it's like I like that. I like that aspect of it. It's just that I don't like that it's tied with a spectacle. It just seems kind of like they wanted it to be the Joker. They couldn't get the Joker to do it, so the next best thing is getting a person that's riding under the Joker to kill them. Like that's like the next best thing, and it's like I don't I never like that because it just kind of seems lame to me. It's just whatever. Uh, so I think that's all I gotta say with the Oh, wait, actually, I do want to talk about a little bit of the development of a few of the protests and that right at the end. It seemed kind of weak, as I said a little bit earlier. Like the protests kind of got instigated by um Arthur Flack killing those three rich boys on the train, and it just seems a little lame because they don't have any big prominence as far as I remember, unless like they mention like, oh, these are the sons of like the government or whatever, like the mayor or whatever. Like okay, like that's something, but as far as I remember, I don't think I think they were just rich and they died, and that was enough for the whole city to be like, yeah, let's fucking protest. Like the class issue is a a very real thing. It's important that people talk about it, I guess, but it's just it just doesn't kind of go far enough to where it's like, yeah, I could see the frustrations. It's just awkward with it. Uh, and then like the riot on the streets at the end after that big monologue from the Joker on that TV show, which I liked. I did like that whole thing with him and Robert De Niro, where they're just sitting down. He's just like, yeah, I killed them, and in a way, it shows that like Robert De Niro's character was trying to kind of virtue signal, like, well, look at me. I can't be that bad. At least I didn't kill anyone, and it just kind of shows that this guy uh, is the most exploitive person. And then you have like Joker saying, "Well, you're just as bad because you're worse than everyone else." And he's like, "How am I worse than everyone else?" Like, well, yeah, but well, you made fun of me on TV. You took something that I tried and you made fun of me and this and that. Like, it's interesting. Like that scene was like very strong in what was being said. That's like, yeah, this happens every day. Everyone goes through this. And I liked it. And it kind of ties back into the Killing Joke. Like there's a line in it that's said from Batman that I really like. That kind of like that's really good. Like he kind of deconstructs what the Joker was saying. Like, well, look, this is unfair. It doesn't make you want to go mad. It's like, well, I just put up with it. Whatever. He said something, I can't remember the exact line. It's been like 2 years since I read the book. Fucking cut me some slack. But he had a good moment where it was a kind of a good rebuttal to what Joker was going through, and I liked that. And this kind of was slightly doing that between him and Robert De Niro, but like you feel more with what the Joker's saying, because he's at least being honest with how he feels with what's going on with the world. Well, Robert De Niro is kind of like, yeah, well, you know what, I'm a good guy, and you know what, at least I didn't kill anyone. It's just kind of like you see who's being us and who's being fake on stage, and I do like how it plays off like that. You'd think that the criminal would be the one that's lying, so I do like that it kind of played that up a little bit. And I think that's like the strongest scene in the movie, for good reason. And you could kind of tell when you're watching it that a lot of attention and time was put into that scene, from the framing, the setting. Like, you have like the silhouette of Joker kind of dancing to the music. Uh, as the curtains getting lifted, and all that kind of shit. Like, it kind of has a nice kind of impact to it. It's a shame the rest of the movie doesn't have that strong weight to it that the ending had. Be it that the riot at the end I thought was a little too over the top, even for what was going on. It just seemed a little like that. Like, that was kind of like where I was like, I don't know how I feel about this riot right now. Like, someone like crashed into a cop car with an ambulance, and it just seemed a little weird. The whole thing just seemed a little off. Like, um, if you look at the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, like The Dark Knight Rises, it kind of develops this kind of climactic kind of explosion of people looting the rich and going through that. And it felt earned, because I felt like that this was something that was building up from even the second movie. Like, you have the scene with the boats, where you have the criminals that are like, we're not gonna fucking sink them, and he just throws it out because he's like, fuck this. And then yeah, they cut to the civilian boats, where they were just being cold and heartless. They're like, fuck those guys, they're criminals. They fucking had their chance. Fuck them. And they're just willing to fuck them, and then they were just cowardly, and then they just didn't push the button, not because, oh, they don't want to sink the boat. They were just cowards. Like, I don't want to, and then they just sit down. It was just weird. Not weird, but it was just like, tense. And then you have the third movie that's just kind of like the deconstruction of this system that Batman and Gordon both wanted to set up at the end of the Dark Knight. Like, the Dark Knight, it kind of has like Batman saying, "Look, make me the villain, make Harvey Dent the hero, and have him be like the golden boy, because then everyone's gonna like kind of rally behind justice and all this kind of stuff." And then in the third movie, it just falls apart, and I like that a lot. Like, it has a nice synergy going with all three movies. Be it that some people might say The Dark Knight Rises is the weakest movie of that trilogy. I think the development of that big like looting of the rich and all that kind of stuff was developed better than how this movie handled the protest and the riots. It just seemed kind of, okay, we need a riot on the street. Okay, the three guys who got killed that were rich. That's why. Okay. Oh, now we need a big riot on the street scene. Okay, he has a big speech, and that's gonna incite people, and then, I mean, that's a better build up to it, than the riots. I mean, than the protests, but it just kind of doesn't go uh as far as it should. Uh, then you have people comparing this Joker to Heath Ledger. Now, this is an interesting like comparison, because they're both different, but at the same time, when I was watching the movie, it kind of felt like that they wanted to make the Joker like Heath Ledger. In some ways, like, even the hair kind of reminded me of Heath Ledger's Joker. A lot of the stuff from Heath Ledger kind of seeped its way into this. However, the one thing I think Heath Ledger's Joker is slightly better than this Joker, in the sense that Heath Ledger's is so mysterious. Like, you never get a clear cut reason, origin story. You don't hear what really happened to him as he was growing up, or what made him change to become the Joker. It just kind of happens, and it seemed more unsettling with Heath Ledger than Joaquin Phoenix in that regard. Like I think Joaquin Phoenix does a great job with the character. I think he's a really good Joker. Uh, but it just doesn't hit that same note. And I do, and I also get that it's trying to be its own thing as well. It's not trying to mimic Heath Ledger's Joker necessarily, and it does well for what's given. But I needed something else to kind of push him a little bit more. Either have him be like more like the Killing Joke, Joker, where he's this kind of pathetic loser, desperate guy that get everyone literally walks over. Either go with that route or go with Heath Ledger's route. But if they're going with the Killing Joke, I think it is they kind of bumbled through how he was in before he was the Joker because wasn't necessarily a super duper loser. Like he wasn't this like kind of like pathetic guy. I mean I don't even think he was super pathetic because he at least tried to get himself better. Like he tried to not get in trouble. He tried his best, and things pushed him, but it was just kind of uh, it just felt like a more like a summary of what happened than him actually going through it. Like like the Killing Joke in the book, in that book, like it has such a short origin story almost, but it does it in such a way that's poignant and it's like you feel something more about the Joker's past. Be it that it is like gets re integrated into the story's current time in that story, but this it kind of gets there, but then it's like it kind of meanders a little bit. It's not bad. It's not a bad movie, and I know I saw like a lot of negatives, but I think the positives are just so strong. Like you just kind of feel it because there's more to talk about with its flaws that I find more fascinating. Like the positives are good. Like it's a solid movie. It has a good um pacing to it. It doesn't feel too long. It doesn't feel short. It felt like it was going through very well. I think the pacing was good. The pacing, the music, the acting, the visuals, like how they set up Gotham and how real it looked. It didn't look clean. It didn't look prestige or anything like that. Like you look at a Marvel movie and the city just looks kind of crisp and clean and beautiful and this and that. But then here it's like depressing, and I like that it looks depressing because it kind of helps paint that tone that is almost synonymous with Gotham, and I like that. I like that a lot in that movie. Uh, is there's I think a lot of these shortcomings that this movie have don't ruin the movie, but they're fascinating because you don't because a lot of these DC movies you could just talk about the negatives and like oh this part sucks and this is terrible, but these negatives that I had for this movie is more just like I kind of liked what it did, but it just wasn't close to what it could have been. And when I see a movie that makes me think that it's good, but it could be even better, it tells me that the movie does a very good job showing its promise to the viewer, and I think that that's what was going on. Like you could kind of tell that there was at least some enough effort was being put in, and everyone was doing their best to put their A game in it. So I do appreciate a lot of what this movie did, be it that it falls short in some cases. I think it's a very genuine and competent movie that has come out from DC since the Nolan movies. So my rating is an 8 out of 10. It's in theaters. Go check it out. It's a very solid movie. So that's it for my review of Joker. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support me however you want, be it watch the videos, watch the streams when I go live, or if you want to support me even more, check the description below. I have all the information you need to know if you want to support me however you want. So that's it for this review. I will see you guys next time, and everyone have a good week. See ya when I see ya.